All right, you may know that the United States is full of crazy laws, and sometimes they're just dumb, but sometimes they have a really good story behind them, and that's what we're going to talk about today on Scott Reads Crazy Things from the Internet. In Arizona, it is illegal to have your donkey sleep in a bathtub. Okay, you know there's got to be a story behind this. People do not make laws about donkeys and bathtubs unless something's going on. I do, however, want to point out that the law, as it is stated when people talk about it, is that it is illegal to have your donkey sleep in a bathtub, not to have a donkey in your bathtub. I'm going to bring that up later. All right, so we know that this is a law in Arizona, and they have kept the law, which is disturbing. I don't understand why states keep these laws on the books, but that's another matter. Really, it seems like if you want to have your donkey sleep in a bathtub, or more importantly, if your donkey wants to sleep in a bathtub, why should that be illegal? Who is that hurting? But we're going to find out. Why in the world would we need a law prohibiting donkeys to sleep in bathtubs? There's actually a good story here. It begins a few years back before the law was passed in 1924. It seems that a certain rancher who lived near Kingman, Arizona, had a donkey that became accustomed to sleeping in an abandoned bathtub on the rancher's property. This may not seem like a crime, a little weird, but not something that would hurt anywhere else. But a problem arose when a dam broke and the town was flooded along with the surrounding area. When the flood reached the rancher's property, the donkey was apparently in the bathtub, and it took the bathtub for a ride down into the wash and into a basin. Funny that it's in a bathtub and there was a wash and a basin involved in the flooding that was going on. The story goes that quite a bit of the town's resources and manpower were spent trying to rescue the donkey from the bathtub. They don't explain why the donkey needed to be rescued from the bathtub. Presumably it could just stand up like it always did, but it must have made the townspeople pretty upset because before long they created a law banning donkeys from sleeping in bathtubs. Now, the thing that's funny enough on its own, but there's some serious problems here that really show how little thought goes into lawmaking. The law is that your donkey can't sleep in a bathtub, but in this case, it was not, as far as we know, the rancher's donkey. It was a donkey. Donkeys in places like Arizona are often wild or at least loose. So the issue was not that the donkey was in a bathtub. The question becomes, whose donkey was it? We don't really know. We also have the problem that this was an abandoned bathtub. Did the rancher abandon it? Who's in charge of patrolling for these bathtubs? Is someone leaving a bathtub somewhere and a random donkey getting into it going to be illegal? Perhaps, but who's at fault? Right? That's a real problem here that we're talking about potentially wild animals and abandoned bathtubs. It's just an object, right? It's not something that someone registers. You don't know where it comes from. And yes, it may be on your land, but we're talking about a ranch. There's a very real possibility that you would have a bathtub somewhere on your ranch and know nothing about it. These are real questions that people need to consider. And what would the penalty be? And why did it take so many resources to make a law, keep it on the books, and have to defend it for a century? Why didn't they just deal with the situation? Find the donkey a home, not put the bathtub back. There had to be an easier way. It's not like this rancher was going to take this bathtub back and recreate this situation. He didn't create it intentionally in the first place. The whole point was it was an abandoned bathtub and it appears not to have been his donkey. So it's just silly that they made a law that is so specific and doesn't necessarily even apply to the scenario it was written for.